Welcome to stormTRacker, your eye on the storm of your Carolina Hurricanes, and your home for the best insight and analysis to keep you totally informed on what's happening with the Canes. Whether it's the latest news on the ice or off the ice, we've got you covered. Now let's begin. Here's your host, Tom Ray.
Well, Chicago Wolves are battling hard for a playoff spot in the Central Division with a tenuous 6-point cushion on fourth place Rockford for that final playoff spot. The Wolves continue to roll without star defenseman Scott Morrow. Scott, of course, up with the Carolina Hurricanes, and they'll be looking for other members of the team to step up after going 4-5-1 in their last 10. Joining us to talk about this and more, stormTRacker's Chicago Wolves insider, Andrew Rinaldi. Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
It's going pretty good, Tom. Thanks again for having me on.
It's always great, and of course, everybody wondering what's going on in Chicago these days. Of course, we know they're volleying hard to try to get in the playoffs. This would be exciting. Last year, not a good year for the Wolves, so if they can get back into that playoff hunt, it'd be a lot of fun. What's been happening? 4-5-1? Not the best.
Yeah, it's been, as with as you expect with the young team at this level, it's been this month's been a bit of a roller coaster. They started off on the road, tough venue down in Texas, leading team in the division, dropped a couple out there. Then they came home and looked really good against likes of Manitoba, shut out Texas in All-State. Then there was what I think was a big measuring stick weekend this past weekend with the Hershey Bears coming to town. Now, anyone who's not super familiar with the American League, the Hershey Bears have won the last 2 Calder Cups on the back of some big veteran play, and are first in their division and are looking to try and make it 3 for 3 here. So. The Wolves kind of got beat up a little bit by those Bears, and it's for all the progress that's been made by a lot of these youngsters this season here, it was kind of like we like what we see, but there's still like this gap that's between the rest of the roster and the cream of the crop, to say. So that's not, necessarily, I would say, indictment of anything wrong going on in Chicago. I think it's just, Hershey's got the oldest team in the league by average age. Yeah. So, when you have a team that relies on a lot of play from its rookies going up against a team like that, it's just not really an expected result in the manner that it happened, but not really shocking either. So, ups and downs. It's the way that the season's been. You got some good, you got some bad, but you keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I think last month we were talking about some outstanding play that the Wolves have been delivering, and we're going to expect that, as you say, with the younger players and so on. But, they do have some veterans, and this is one of the areas that I think they're really going to be looking for, strength as they battle for these playoffs. And in particular, I'm looking at the goaltending. So you've got Spencer Martin. He's been getting it done. He's got a 2.28 goals against average, 911 save percentage. So he's 16, 6-3. He's getting it done for sure. But Dustin Tokarski, now that's an interesting one because he has historically been lights out in the American Hockey League. And I noticed his save percentage is under 900. That's kind of surprising to me. And of course, Ruslan Kazeev has been filling in as well and continuing his development. What's going on with the goaltending?
Yeah, I feel like some of it is just the kind of the 3 goaltender system that they're running with the Wolves. So I think it's pretty clear at this point that Martin is the go-to number one.
Yeah.
And then Tokarski, when he came in, when Martin was first called up, I think he came in November, and like you said, was lights out. I think he had 2 shutouts in his first 2 games and was incredible to start. So much so that Carolina was like, "Hey, let's pull him up here and send Spence back down." Kind of gave him a little more flexibility with the roster there as well. But ever since being reassigned, I feel like it's been a matter of rhythm. It's been a matter of just not getting as much ice time in the crease, and I think the same could be said about Khajiv, because again, it's already tough for a 19-year-old in this league to tend the pipe against some of these shooters, especially like you got Hershey going in, and I noticed that there was definitely some rebound control issues for the youngster. But that's because these guys in Hershey have been playing pro hockey, some of them for the last 7-8 years, and know exactly where to put the puck, to where if it's not going to go into the net, it's going to create a chance for their guy that's crashing on the other wing. So it's, I think some of it's, a rhythm for the number 2 and 3 number 2 and 3 netminders there, but I think Spence is as good as it gets in this league. And, when you have that kind of option in net, I think it helps out the squad in front of him so much. I think he's got that kind of swagger that really kind of leads off into the rest of the lineup as well. So he was unavailable for this past weekend. I think he got a little dinged up in Thursday's game and then welcomed his son to the world. So team kind of gave him some time off there, but I don't think it's anything that should hamper him long term. I think, it's just kind of the nature of the beast here.
Well, yeah, he's definitely going to be key. They'll be looking for some rock solid goaltending, and of course they're seeing that with the parent club right now because, of course, Freddie Anderson and Pyotr Kochetkov are lights out these days. So if they want any kind of indication of what they should be doing, that's probably a good place to take a look. Couple of other things. Standovicki, of course, working hard with Ruslan Khajiv. You said he was 19, of course, when he came over. A lot of folks wondering about Ruslan. I've had some questions on other podcasts about Ruslan, how he's doing. How do you think he's progressing?
I think he's coming. He's steadily he's coming along, and it's a hard kind of measuring stick against a team like Hershey over this past weekend. But I think, one of his last starts against Milwaukee was one of his best start of the season. He looked, in control of the game, and it's just he's only going to get better with playing time. And I think in between the Hershey game and the Milwaukee game, I think he got kind of lit up once. And young goaltender in this league, you're going to look good one night. Next night, you might give up a couple. And, it's no one. The thing I think that made Pyotr Kochetkov such a enigma is that he came in and immediately dominated. I know he was a little older than Ruslan, but it's not always, that's not the norm. And I think, I don't think anyone was really expecting that out of Khajiv either. So
no,
it's just gonna, like I said, progression with more games, and just more comfort in that net. And, I think it's this season is more just kind of exposing him to this pro game, kind of getting him familiar with Stan, with the team, and just kind of getting him that progression started more so than expecting any real tangible competition from him, and at least in terms of the standings. But I've liked where he's grown more and more. I mentioned the rebounds in the Hershey game, stuff that can get cleaned up, but no 20-year-old goaltender is going to be that the lights out. So I've liked what I've seen, and it just tells me I think down the line he's going to be a big factor in this team and hopefully in this organization.
Yeah, and the luxury they have, of course, having 2 veterans alongside Ruslan gives him, it's great mentoring for him. And, the other thing, and we've talked about this before, a 19-year-old coming to North America, it's a new country, new situation. He hadn't really played much in the pro ranks at all. So he's really cutting his teeth. And again, he's got the athleticism, he's got the size, he's got everything you need to be an excellent goaltender. So, yeah, I'm kind of like you. I think next year he's going to play a lot more. I think they're just kind of bringing him along nicely. Give him a taste. Continue the mentoring, continue the teaching, and I think he's going to be a great one. I can see a day, frankly, where at some point we have Piotr and we have Ruslan Kaziev, and boy, wouldn't that be something? These would be two amazing goaltenders. So yeah, now Hershey, just for fans' sake, Washington Capitals farm team.
Yep.
I thought they were, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you got the Caps dominating the NHL, and you got Hershey, of course, doing very well. And credit to the Washington Capitals organization from top to bottom, for sure. And they've been developing some great players over the years. So no surprise they're in the mix. Let's talk about the defense corps for a minute. Now, we did, off the top, I mentioned that, of course, Scott Morrow was up with the Hurricanes, playing very well. Gosh, 4 games, 3 points, doing very well, +4, looking the part for sure, and making a hard decision for the Canes to pull him out as Dmitry Orlov returned. But he's clearly a huge part of the success of this Chicago team so far. What are you thinking with the loss of him so far, and who's going to maybe fill the void?
Yeah, it was definitely felt over the weekend against a squad like Hershey. You really miss Scott's ability to move the puck in transition, get him moving from defense to offense, and it just that those extra seconds, minutes of pressure when you're in your own zone, kind of scrambling against the attack, it wears you down. And in both of those Hershey games, you saw a lot of breakdowns in that second period. Particularly, I think they were outscored 6-0 between both second frames over the weekend, so it wasn't great. And I think that was a big symptom of kind of the floor kind of coming out from underneath their feet. But I've said this many times. It almost feels like a cliche at this point. No one in the American League is going to feel bad for you because
you said
your star player got pulled up. Like, that's great. They just had their star player called up. Their goalie just got called up. Like, no one cares. So I think, you're going to see a lot more opportunities for guys like Dominic Fensore, for Ronan Seeley, Charles Alexis Legault. Alexei Hemosalmi seeing some power play time. He had an absolute
rocket. Nice goal. Yeah, he had a beautiful goal. I saw that. Yeah. Yes.
So I think, it's not necessarily just going to be like, okay, we're going to lean more on this guy. It's going to be, all right, everyone's going to have little extra opportunities with that absence in the lineup. And, maybe someone reaches out and grabs it and takes it. I've really liked Fensore's game, but tonight he's going to be on the second pairing with Charles Alexis Legault. I love that line, and we'll see where who can grab the momentum with the extra ice time.
So who's on the top pairing right now?
Right now it's Riley Stillman and Seeley.
Okay, now Stillman's an interesting story. Of course, he had that serious skate injury and then came right down and started playing for the Wolves. I mean, that's a guy that really, he's committed to his craft for sure and didn't miss a beat. How's Riley been doing?
Well, that first game against Hershey, I want to say maybe 5 minutes in, he absolutely hammered a bear at the blue line, like classic Scott Stevens style hit. And this is just the kind that you just don't see a whole lot anymore in this game. So certainly that injury, which is just horrifying to think of. He's not scared of going out there and giving it his all still. So it's just a one of those stories that kind of gets your skin crawling a little bit.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
he's got the bubble on, and in my younger years, I would never would have been caught dead wearing a bubble, but now I'm as I've gotten older and seen some nasty accidents in beer league, I think he's doing it the right way. So
Yeah.
yes, he hasn't really missed a beat since taking that skate to the face.
Well, you mentioned Dominic Fensori and, of course, Charles Alexis Legault, and there's a lot of Carolina Hurricanes fans who are very high on Charles Alexis Legault. I'm one of them. He's again, first year pro, cutting his teeth. He's going to, have his ups and downs, and I think we've seen some of that this year. But he certainly has created a chemistry with Dominic Fensori, and those two guys together, boy, they're out there and doing some heavy lifting. And one of the things about Dom, and I'm kind of saying his praises over and over again, I think he's a guy that just looks the part on the ice, even though he's not a big player. But boy, he has been something else shorthanded this year. Man, he's got 3 shorthanded goals and 5 shorthanded points to lead the AHL Blue Liners in that category. He's really something.
Yeah, I think people don't really expect that from a defenseman, but it's you're not really familiar with Fensori's game if that's the case. He flies around like a rocket out there, and I think sometimes with that that little bit of extra space, someone might be caught napping on a line change, and all of a sudden he's joining the rush, and by the time the reinforcement's back on the ice, it's in the back of the net. So that doesn't. He's that kind of dynamic talent is kind of indicative of what he brings to this team, and it shows that losing Morrow obviously is huge. Let's be real. Most organizations, this guy would probably already be pretty solidly on an NHL roster. So it's been a bit of a luxury to have him down in Chicago, but they've been able to supplement that loss with the guy like Fensori, who you can rely on obviously in the power play, but also on the penalty kill as well.
Yeah.
Not just to keep the puck out, but to go down and counter at the same time. So it's been a lot of fun to just kind of watch his game steadily grow into. I mean, he's in Chicago last year, and I don't kind of remember him being such a threat on the penalty kill. I don't think he was utilized very much on the penalty kill anyway, so we might have to ask Bob Nardello what was up with that. But it's been watching a lot. He's been a lot of fun to watch.
Well, and I think that's one of the key stories with Dom. When he came out of Boston College, of course, he was incredible offensively. We knew that. Power play quarterback, big point guy. But the questions were, could he handle some of the heavy lifting, and certainly penalty killing is probably one of the tougher areas. And he looks like he's really growing into that. And this is what we've seen in the development and similar development with, of course, Scott Morrow. I think there's a lot to be said for the good work that, the coaching staff in Chicago is doing with these young defensemen. They're really bringing them along nicely and helping them round out their games. And you talk about Scott Morrow. Here's an interesting thing on Scott. We know about his offensive acumen. If we look at the AHL rookie scoring right now, this is kind of fun. Scott's 9th with 39 points, okay? So that's really great. But Justin Robidas actually 3rd, if you can believe it, with 43, and Bradley Nadeau's 8th with 41. 3 of the top 10 rookies in the scoring side are on the Wolves. So that's an impressive story. And again, speaks to the quality of these young players that the Canes are drafting and how they're developing. And, you look at a guy like Bradley Nadeau. I mean, gosh, we talk about him so much. What's going on with Bradley these days?
One can kind of look at the score sheet and think like, oh man, this is it's not looking great, because he has 1 goal over his last 9 games.
Oh.
It's a little tough. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a tough March there for Bradley, but I think when he started off the first 5 months of the season, just absolutely lighting up the score sheet. Yeah,
Yes.
it's like okay, kind of not to overreact or anything. He still, I don't think, turns 20 until May.
Correct.
So it's tough for young players to sustain such a level of success at this level of hockey.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's indicative that he's playing bad necessarily. It's it's one of those scoring slumps. I still think he's contributing offensively. He's still gotten a couple of assists in that time, and is still absolutely being keyed in by opposing teams' top defenders. So he's still clearly very much a threat every time he's out on the ice. It's just one of those things where the puck's just not going in for him, and he's not going to be the kind of guy who I think is going to get kind of down in the dumps about himself. He's just going to keep shooting, and eventually they'll start going in again. So, it's like I said, you can kind of watch the scorecards and think like, oh wow, like what's going on with Bradley, and it's just one of those things for a young player to get through. And I think honestly, I think it'll be better for his development to go through a slump like this and to be like, all right, like what do I kind of got to work on here? I don't want it to be too easy for him.
Well, you know what? It's these kind of slumps are not limited, of course, to Bradley and the American Hockey League. We see them regularly with some of the the big gunners in the NHL, and it he came out of the World Juniors and was just incredible for a period of time. He looked like he was scoring almost every game. So you are going to go through this, and I think the biggest situation you want to look for is how's he going to kind of pull himself out of it. The other thing too, he had great success on the power play, and of course missing Scott Morrow there is putting some pressure on some others. And again, sometimes one or two players missing can change a lot for you. So he's going through that stage. We're going to have to keep an eye on him. He'll come back. We know he's a natural goal scorer. This guy is he's definitely one of those guys that can put the puck in the net and do it readily. And I think the big area that he needs to continue to work on, of course, is his 200-foot game, because as he gets that, he's going to start to become real potential for the Carolina Hurricanes. And a lot of folks think that Bradley's going to join them next year. A lot of it's going to depend on, what the roster looks like. Right now, it's starting to look like the Canes are going to have a lot of money to spend, so they're going to be buying, a number of different players to come in and join them, which I don't know what that's going to leave in terms of another younger player. They do have, of course, Jackson Blake, who's doing a nice job this year. So, for sure, we're going to keep an eye on Bradley. We really are rooting for him to continue his fine rookie season for sure. And I think he's the number one goal scorer on the rookie side as well at this stage. So he's definitely getting it done. Hey, what can you say about Justin Robidas? This guy he's just getting it done, and he has the entire season. I mean, his numbers reflect that, and he's been quite the story. So what's going on with Justin these days?
I don't know what more I can say about Justin Robidas that I haven't said in months past. He's continued. He's one of those guys where you're aware of him coming in, but I think the spotlight was more on guys like Nadeau and Morrow heading into this season, and now he's really kind of taken a hold on his spot in the lineup and the impact that he's making on every side, in special teams, 5-on-5 play. He's just it's been real fun to watch his game growing as well, and I think it's his game was mature beyond his years coming in, and it allowed him to adapt to that pro style just so much easier than some of these other guys that can come out of juniors where like you're the stud and then you make the pro level and it's just you're not quite dominating grown men like you are other your peers. So it can be a much harder transition for him, but he's been a kid to just give his all on every single shift. Whether he's got the puck on his stick or whether he's chasing it down on the forecheck or killing penalties. It's you never question his effort on the ice, and that's just an awesome thing to say about a young kid that's making his professional debut this year. And because you can always kind of tweak the other things, right? But if you don't have the heart to get into it, then you're left with another Dominic Bach who's banished off to Germany.
Dominic Bach, I haven't heard that name for a while.
Oh man, the nightmares of him. That kid had all the talent in the world, but it's a breath of fresh air to see that coming out of a kid like Robidas. And again, it's just his tenacity, getting after the puck, getting it to his teammates, and going to the net hard. He's not the biggest guy in the world, right? I think we all recognize that. Like he's, I think listed 5'8", 180 off the top of my head.
He is 5'8" and 180. He is one stocky guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, so with that low center of gravity, he can really take that puck to the net and just create chaos for the other side. And you're seeing the effort rewarded on the score sheet as well. It's I think he's having just the kind of the setup in Chicago where he's like, he wasn't the number one guy, I don't think, coming in, but he's kind of planted himself and worked his way up to that top line, to that. I don't know if he's the number one option on the team, but I don't think he cares. I think he's just going to roll his sleeves up and get to work every night. And, the numbers speak for themselves at this point.
Yeah. And a couple of things, when he was in junior, of course, with Valdor, he had some big numbers. I mean, he does have a natural offensive ability, and he's been showing that, and I think we've seen a number of his goals. I mean, beautiful shots and getting in there, making things happen, going in where the action is. And, the Canes have no reluctance at all to bring in smaller players, as we've seen with the likes of Seth Jarvis and now, of course, Logan Stankoven. And I think, again, you earn the right. And if you're working hard out there and you're getting your space and you're getting your opportunities, you're going to see the Hurricanes someday. And I think he's a guy that very much has a future with the Hurricanes, and look forward to it. And again, last year in the East Coast League, this year his first year in the AHL, and he's definitely looking the part for the Wolves. And we'll see how he goes down this stretch run. And this is going to be interesting for a lot of the players on the roster because the younger guys, this is when it's almost playoff hockey now. So, we're down to that stage where each and every game is critical. And again, they're this is going to be quite an experience for them. Now, they do have another guy that I really like and who I think has been playing quite nicely, and he brings that veteran side. And he said something when he came back to Chicago from playing with the Hurricanes for a while and did a nice job with the Canes. I'm talking about Juha Jaska. Jaska said, "The next dream is to be an NHL player and know you're going to stay there. I know this is really good for me to be in Chicago. The game is so hard up there, so I need to get way better. And this is the perfect spot to develop my game with this group and these guys." And he's a guy that brings it every night. He's showing some interesting offensive, capability that I'm not sure a lot of us were aware of. But boy, I see the highlights regularly, and he seems to be showing up a lot. And he's another guy that, he plays that Rod Brindamore style. He's out there working hard. He's got a solid 200-foot game. What can we expect from Juha Jaska?
Exactly what you've been saying right there, and I think he's kind of like a beefed up Robidas. He's responsible on every end of the ice, special teams, on power play, penalty kill. You know what you're getting from him every single night, whether he puts up 3 points or whether he puts up 0. He's going to be contributing one way or another to your team's success, and you're going to need him to win, whether he is scoring or not. And I think for Yaska, it's just a matter of time, matter of opportunity. And right, he's going to just continue to put his head down, get to work, and continue to get better every night. I think he's got the right mindset. He's got the right situation in Chicago, and fans have seen in Carolina what he, when he's come up and he's done whatever was asked of him to do. And it's just been more of the same in Chicago. And all it is, some of these guys just kind of need that opportunity to kind of open. I think earlier this season he had his opportunity, kind of impress the coaching staff in Carolina. Because sometimes you think you know a guy and then you see him a little more and you're like, all right, we really like what we have here, and it's just a matter of it's a really good roster up in Carolina. So a guy like Yaska is down here in Chicago. So, it's hopefully it's not a matter of an injury or anything like that. But if that's what just kind of happens to be because of the nature of the game and all that, then I have every confidence in my mind that Yaska would be able to come in to perform at the same level that, we've come to expect from him at this point. And it's only been about 40 odd so games in Chicago, but he's quickly become a fan favorite because of those aspects of his game. And just like I said, of Robidas, his tenacity, just with the puck, without the puck, just tough to play against. I think that's like it's a quality I think you hear a lot, and it's tough to explain, but you see it a lot from these veteran players. You see it being described about them a lot.
Yes.
About being tough to play against. And it's just, the little details to a game that, maybe a 20, 21-year-old might not fully grasp. But a guy like Yasko has been playing pro hockey over in Finland, come over here, has made a seamless transition, and is just I'm trying to clean it up, but an absolute pain in the what to play with. Just it's just a matter of when that door opens for him.
Well, that's great, and as we talked at the outset, some of the veterans are going to be critical as they kind of navigate through this. We talked about the goaltenders, of course, Spencer Martin and Dustin Tokarski. We've got some defensemen who've got a lot of experience. Riley Stillman's there. You've got Joakim Ryan. I don't know where Ty Smith is these days. He hasn't been playing for a while. Is he injured right now?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Is he due back this year, or do you know if he's going to come back?
It's hard getting injury information out of these guys. For fans who aren't aware, it's as long if you're under contract with Carolina, I would have to get through Carolina to get information about the specifics about the injuries. And unless your name is like Walt Ruff, you're not going to know that stuff even in Carolina, let alone is the guy from Chicago going to know about it. Yes. So not necessarily, but it's the long and short of it is they're pretty hush-hush about injury details.
Yeah. Well, we haven't heard about him for a while. Now, up front, you've got Josiah Slavin, the captain of the squad. You've got Skylar Brindamore. You've got Juha Jaska. You've got Ryan Suzuki. So you do have, again, some veterans up front that they're going to be critical as you go through. One other player I'm kind of thinking about these days, and, it's back to our discussion about Ruslan Kazeev. Another 19-year-old that came over, kind of had a tough period. He got a high ankle strain and was out 3 months. I mean, this is hard for a first-year guy, and and trying to find his way in North America and everything else. Of course, I'm talking about Gleb Trikazov. What's going on with Gleb Trikazov these days?
He was back for a couple of games, and everyone was all excited for him. And I'm not sure if it was re-aggravation of his injury or not, if that same one or if it was a new one. Again, details. But yeah, he hasn't played since March 2nd against Texas.
Wow.
So
okay.
He got injured early in December, was back for 2 games by the look of it.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately he's just been out again. So just tough luck is really the best I can say. I was really hoping to see more of this kid, especially after, he'd scored a couple goals in November, and I'm like, all right, like once you kind of like settle in, like here we go, and all the train's going. And I know there's like the big like Gleb meme and everything. So it's just been a tough rookie year for him.
Yeah.
And I think he's, as you said, kind of like with Ruslan, this is expecting more to be kind of like a ease him in type situation. They weren't expecting him to run the power play or anything quite yet. It was more just kind of like at least at the beginning of the season, he was pretty sheltered down in the bottom and all of that. So, unfortunately, it's just the hockey gods haven't been very kind to him. So hopefully, he can kind of get healthy towards the last month of the season here, and maybe make an appearance in the postseason.
Well, I sure hope so. And I understand they wanted to bring him over. Of course, he wasn't getting much action, certainly at the KHL level, which is where he needed to be. And the Canes felt it was best to get him over here and get him into the system, and starting to learn the way of life for Carolina Hurricanes players. He had an outstanding prospect showcase, as you might recall. He was just wonderful to watch. A skilled player. He can really shoot the puck. And like you, I'm hoping he's going to get a little bit of ice here, so we can see how he's going to come along. Of course, next year will be a different year for him, I'm sure, and it's just been one of those years where it's kind of tough. But again, he's a guy with a lot of talent. He's still very young, so we'll keep an eye on Gleb and see how he's coming along. Look forward to his development for sure. So some big games coming up. Next on Tuesday, of course, they're going to be playing Rockford, so that's a 4-pointer.
Yeah. So Chicago's currently sitting at 4th, and Rockford is in at 5th in the last spot in the Central.
Okay.
So the way that the bracket works out in the Central Division side, the top 3 seeds are kind of like already like in, right? And then you have the 4 and the 5 seed will play a 3-game series, kind of like a play-in type deal.
Okay.
The AHL is very like convoluted. Basically, everyone makes it, unless it's 2023, in which case both of my beats missed it. But thankfully, that was a couple years ago. So they're pretty comfortably in at this point. Rockford is chasing them. I feel like Rockford should be a better team than what it is. I think Artyom Levshunov, the number 2 pick from last year, he was just called up to Chicago.
He's up with Chicago, yeah.
Kevin Korchinski is another first rounder that was there, along with Frank Nazar, but I believe he's up in Chicago.
Yeah.
And the Blackhawks are just throwing all of their young guns, just juggling them back and forth.
Slaggert, I think. Does Slaggert play here as well?
Slaggert's down there in Rockford. Yep. So there's a lot of potential there, but they've not, like all year you've been waiting for them to just kind of like put it together, and it's just never really happened for them. But this will be a big one on Tuesday. They got Texas coming in. This game on Friday night starts about a half hour from now, so I'll be tuning into that. And then another one on Saturday. So, and that's huge. Like I said earlier, Texas is first in the division, seemingly forever. Logan Stankoven was there, his former Kane. It was down in Texas last year, but
that's right, and he was Rookie of the Year, as it turns out.
Yes. Yeah, and him and Maverick Bork. I don't know, they're putting something in the water in Texas because they lose those two studs and they're still really good. But it's big. Like I said, this is kind of like another one of those measuring sticks. You kind of you kind of took the belt last weekend against Hershey, so this is an opportunity to, you're back in your division, spin it around. Obviously, the Rockford game kind of has a bit more weight to it with a little more playoff implications, but
yes,
we'll see, because they're kind of in. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily in danger, because luckily for Rockford, Iowa and Manitoba are some of the worst hockey teams I've ever seen that are chasing them for that last playoff spot. Okay. So, it's the Central Division's kind of, there's been some tough teams to watch in these beats, but they so in that case, when kind of that you're probably going to be seeing this team in the postseason for a 3-game series, you're gonna be wanting to send a message when that comes in. So obviously there's a month left in the season. There's a lot to go. Anything can change between now and then, but there's never too early to start sending a message. So
yeah, it's definitely this series of games. And thanks for clarity on the playoffs. It's hard to kind of get your arms around that. I read several different things and tried to figure it out, and it's a little bit challenging.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
So thanks for doing that for sure, Andrew. And hopefully folks will understand how it all plays out. And as you say, it's the 4th and 5th will be going into a 3. It's a best of 3. Yeah.
For the 4-5 series. Not to cut you off there, but if anyone is ever curious, on theAHL.com, there's a wonderful resource that helps wrap your mind around it called the Playoff Primer.
Right.
It gives you magic numbers. It gives you strength of schedule, who's coming up that each team's going to be playing against, and it's absolutely wonderful to keep it all organized. It's got the bracket. It's like, if the playoffs started today, here's what it would look like. And it's overwhelming at first. Thankfully, I've got a couple of years of understanding this. I blame COVID. COVID ruined the whole thing. Now everyone's in the playoffs. And it's a mess, but it's also a lot of fun. Last year, I remember, I think Tucson was like the number 2 seed, going up against Calgary, who had Dustin Wolf on the other side. Calgary was a great roster, but they had Dustin Wolf. 3-game series, all you need is 2 wins.
Hot goalie, yeah.
And then it blows your bracket up. March Madness all over again.
Well, that's really interesting for sure. And so we're, I have to say I prefer the wild card style that the NHL deploys. It's a little easier for me to follow. But again, thanks for that clarity. Hey, as we wrap up, closing thoughts, Andrew.
Yeah, it's I think kind of this as we've seen this month, kind of it being down and up and down again, that this is just kind of the rigors of a team that's still it's coming together for sure, as we're several months in and we're just kind of heading down the home stretch here. But you can kind of measure up to, again, where you have like the best of the best, right? And then you have a team like Chicago, and again, it's not to disparage any of the guys on the squad or anything, not to say that the Calder Cup is still kind of a couple teams in front of them, but
yes,
there's talent and fun on this roster that comes to play every single night, and it's been a treat to follow. And you're going to see more of these guys that return next year, and they're going to be even better. And it's I think this playoff stretch is going to be is just as important as any other in terms of development. I think that's a big reason why you see 24 teams in the AHL playoffs is because the organizations up top and the parent clubs of each of these affiliates understands that iron sharpens iron, pressure creates diamonds.
Yes.
These big games are gonna kind of show your character, show you like what kind of players you really have in these systems, and I think it goes a long way for your development. So after all of this, you got the biggest games of the year up in the NHL, obviously, and but down here as well. This is where these kids are gonna get that first taste of like pro playoff action. Like you thought those last 60 games were tough. Now wait till they turn the intensity up a little bit. So I like where this team's headed. Sure, yeah, they're not Hershey, but there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of fun on the roster, and there's some big games coming up, and I'm excited to see kind of like when those stakes are raised and those chips are down, like who's going to be the hero,
Yeah, for sure. And as I mentioned before, and I was talking about Scott Morrow, and, I think it'd be great if he saw regular ice for the Wolves and, heading into the playoffs and in the playoffs, because he plays in all situations. And I think it would be another good experience for him as he prepares himself to join the Hurricanes, hopefully next year. It's going to be exciting. We're going to watch closely what happens with the Wolves. A lot of these kids, they have a great pedigree, as you know, too, Andrew, that they've been in these roles for their teams in junior and college, wherever it's been. They've been go-to players. So, this is going to take that experience and move it to the next level for them. And that should be a lot of fun. So as always, it's great talking Chicago Wolves with you, Andrew. Can you let everybody know where they can find you, please?
Absolutely. So my written work on the team can be found at the Calder Times. Our website covers AHL hockey all over the league. And you can also find me on, I'm still going to call it Twitter, or X, I guess, if you're into the new thing, which is where I give, I give live tweets during the game, updates, opinions, memes, and, I enjoy chatting with the fans and answering questions and just kind of being a part of the general community. I gotta say, when I first joined the beat, when Chicago first became the affiliate of the Carolina Hurricanes, like I cover a team in Illinois. I'm from Michigan. I had no idea the passion of the fans in North Carolina. I'm thinking, who cares about hockey in Carolina? So it was kind of very eye-opening to connect with the community and to be involved in that way. So I'm always happy to answer questions or just to chat around with anyone who wants to reach out.
That's great, Andrew. And as always, it's as I said, it's great fun to talk Chicago Wolves. For all of you who've been watching or listening, Andrew and I are very pleased you could join us today. If you like this episode, please press the like button. If you have questions or comments or just want to say a few words about your thoughts on the Chicago Wolves or hockey in general, please put them in the comment section down below, and Andrew and I will try to get back to you just as quickly as possible. And again, for those of you who want to be alerted of future episodes of stormTRacker and future episodes of the Chicago Wolves Report, of course, please press the subscribe button and the bell, and we'll alert you as soon as those are available. Once again, Andrew and I thank you so much for joining us today, and look forward to getting together with you real soon, right here on stormTRacker.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends for everything with the Canes. You need stormTRacker.